Hi, I'm Alicia.
And I'm Robin, and you're listening to Bowel Moments,
the podcast sharing real talk about the realities of IBD. Served on the rocks. This week, we talked to Victorien Madsen. Victorien was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis after her second child, and she currently lives in the Netherlands. We talked to her about what it was like navigating this new disease and trying to find answers while she was a young mother. We talked to her about how she discovered the specific carbohydrate diet before the internet was even really a thing, and how she incorporates that into her life and how that's been able to help her get great quality of life back, and how she incorporates it into her family's meal planning. We talked to her about volunteering to help other people find dietary therapies and navigate diets in inflammatory bowel disease by running a Facebook support group, and how that also led her to join the ranks of the volunteers at Nutritional Therapy for inflammatory bowel disease. And we talked to her about the work that she's done there. We had a really great conversation with Victorien. We know you'll enjoy it just as much as we did. Cheers.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bowel Moments. This is Robin.
Hey guys, this is Alicia, and we are so very excited to be joined by Victorien Madsen. Victorien, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
We are so excited to hear your story, especially because you are one of our we've not had very many international guests. So we are so excited. But we start out with a very unprofessional question of what are you drinking?
Oh, well, I've listened to a couple of your shows, so I was prepared. And it's Friday evening here where we are now at 7:00. So I decided to have a glass of Chardonnay here with me.
Lovely.
So right before we will have dinner, hopefully after this.
Very nice. Very nice. I like a Chardonnay. I typically like an unoaked Chardonnay, though, if I can get it. One that has a little crisper Chardonnay is what.
Yes. Yeah, they're good. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. So I don't drink a lot of different types of alcohol. I actually only drink wine, but this is a good one.
Robin, what about you?
It is not 7 p.m. on a Friday where I am. So I am drinking. Here I am being a beverage goblin again. I have sparkling water on my desk. I have coffee on my desk, and I have flat water on my desk. So could be any one of those three things.
That sounds right for you. All of those three things are exactly what I would also expect. So I am also drinking, again, it is not 7 where I live either, unfortunately. So I have sparkling water as well. I'm drinking tropical fruit Waterloo, which is very lovely. And then I also have flat water as well, Robin. Now, next question for you, Victorien. Tell us your IBD story. What brought you into our community?
Yeah, all right. Thank you. Well, my IBD story started in 2006, so 18 years ago, when I was 33, and we just had our second child, Sven, who was 6 months, and then we had our daughter, Eva, who was 2 years old. And it just started with, I actually didn't have a lot of symptoms. It just started with that I had some blood and I was wondering what it was. And I went to the doctor and they didn't take it very serious. So they thought, oh, maybe it's some hemorrhoids, come back in a while and we'll be okay. But then it started to get worse. And so I went back again and they looked at it, and then it started with proctitis, so which is basically the inflammation of the last part of your colon, and it was a couple of centimeters. So I got some medication, but then it really very quickly actually worsened, and within a year I had 40 centimeters of inflammation. I was going to the bathroom all the time. I was tired. Yeah, it was just full-blown colitis. And at the time, we were living in Denmark. So I am Dutch. I'm in the Netherlands right now. But at the time, we were in Denmark. And I was this young mother with 2 kids. And I had no idea what to do with all this. So we tried several types of medication, and sometimes it worked for a while, but it was just getting worse. And then every time after dinner, I would lie down on the couch and be tired and have stomach aches. And so in 2007, we moved to the Netherlands. So then I needed to start all over again with a new doctor in a new hospital, trying to find the new medications again. Also with the insurance, we had a really good insurance company in Denmark. And then my husband got a new job in the Netherlands. So one of the requests we actually had when we transferred was, all right, it's fine, but I want to make sure that whatever health insurance the company is giving, that we get the highest level from the start, because I know they're not going to give it to me once they know I have colitis. And they actually agreed to that. So that was actually really good. And then basically for the next 2 years, I was just going to the bathroom all the time. I would either not go out or not eat. That was basically what I did. Luckily, the kids were very young. So whenever I needed to go to the bathroom, I could ask anywhere, we need to go to the bathroom. And I would always think it was the kids, but it was me. So that was always very, very good. And most of the time they would allow us. But it was, I loved playing sports. I loved running. And at some point, sort of my running turned into, I had all these pit stops during my running, which I just made a certain round. And there were a couple of offices, and there was a restaurant, and there was a supermarket. And I would basically just run sort of maybe half a mile and then get to the next one, and then run half a mile and get to the next one. And by the time, and at some point they all knew me, so they would not ask any questions anymore. I would just go to the bathroom and then leave again. But obviously it's not very comfortable, and you don't really want to do that. So in 2009, we had a wedding in the US, and I just had no idea how I would survive an 8-hour flight when I had to go to the bathroom that often. So I had obviously already started looking, and I asked my doctor, can I do anything with food? Is there anything? No, food doesn't matter, doesn't make a difference. And in 2009, the internet was there, but it wasn't as extensive as it is now. So it took me a little while. But then I found the Specific Carbohydrate Diet on the internet, and I ordered the book from Elaine Gottschall, and I started reading, and I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And my husband was very skeptic. He's like, well, the doctor says it doesn't make a difference, and this seems very complicated. Are you sure you want to do that? And I'm like, yes, I'm sure I want to do this. So I bought a yogurt maker. I read everything I needed to read. I started the introduction diet, which is basically that you eat the fermented yogurt and you make the chicken soup, and you eat very well cooked foods and bananas. And I did that for 5 days. And after 5 days, I already was like, well, I think it's making a difference. And within 6 weeks, my bowel movements went from 20 a day to about 5. So that was definitely very good. And which that meant that I was able to go to the US to the wedding. At the wedding itself, I felt horrible. I had a jet lag and I had a stomach ache. And so that didn't go so well, but at least I was there. And my husband could enjoy the wedding. And then, from then on, it just went better and better. And after 5 months, I had a colonoscopy, and all the 40 centimeters of inflammation was cleared. So it was just, and even I had a nice doctor at the time. I had already moved hospitals because the first doctor that I had completely ignored my story and didn't want to know anything about it. So I moved hospitals and found somebody that was interested. And she was actually really surprised. And I said, well, will you recommend this to other patients? And she said, well, if anybody specifically asks, I will say that I know a person that had a benefit from diet. So that was, at least it was a start. And from then on, I started to scale down on the medication very carefully. And sometimes that went too fast, and then I would have a little bit of bleeding, but I wouldn't have any more stomach aches, and my stool would still be fine. So, but very surely but slowly, I was able to cut it all out. And after 2 years of starting the diet, I was also medication free. And I've basically been medication free and symptom free ever since, except for one short period in 2019 when we had a renovation at the house and I got all stressed and that didn't go so well. And I couldn't cook in my kitchen. And so that was bad. but I got that under control within 3 months again, and also with sort of going really strictly back to the diet. And so that was good. And then so whenever, because of all this, after I had experienced this, I was like, well, there's more people that need to know this, and the doctors are so unwilling to listen. So let me just write down what I have done. So I started to write a sort of starter guide in Dutch, and for people who wanted to know about it. And from that, I started to develop a website, Curing Food, with all the information that I had, and with recipes and tips. And then I got into contact with the Stichting Je Leefstijl als Medicijn, which is a Dutch organization which started out for people with diabetes to use food and lifestyle, and but wanted to sort of branch out to other chronic illnesses. And they had, by the time it was 2019, so more internet, Facebook, and everything. That there's a lot of things wrong with Facebook, but the communities for these types of things are really wonderful, and it's a beautiful way to connect. So Wim Tilburgs from Stichting Je Leefstijl als Medicijn actually encouraged me to start a Facebook group for people with IBD. So that's what I did together with them. So that's part of that organization, and we now have about a little over 900 members in the group. And Stichting Je Leefstijl als Medicijn itself has over 10,000 followers, I think. And so they're doing an amazing job in the Netherlands to get food and lifestyle integrated in care. So I'm still working for them as well. And then I have my own website. And then in 2021, I would say, 2022, I met Kim Bell from Nutritional Therapy for IBD through somebody actually in the IBD and lifestyle group. And we connected together with Nutritional Therapy for IBD. And now I've also started volunteering a lot of my time, really, most of my time, as administrative coordinator for Nutritional Therapy for IBD. And they do things a little bit differently in that they really try to focus on the clinicians and try to bring forward all the evidence that is there for food and lifestyle, especially nutrition, of course, and only for IBD. And it was just it's amazing to be part of that. And I went to ECHO, the European Crohn's and Colitis Congress in Stockholm in February, together with Kim and Tony. And it was really amazing to see that. And on the one hand, to see how much progress there's been made in the last 20 years since I started this. But on the other hand, also a little sad to see how much focus there still is on pharmacy and how difficult it is to, especially the adult GIs, to convince them that nutrition needs to play a role in this and can be so important for anybody. So I think that brought me to 2024.
From the very beginning. Thank you so much, Victorien. I want to make one point for our listeners. Even Stacy Collins, friend of the show, has said this too. So we know diet and nutrition is so important. But if you are one of those people who has tried this and it hasn't worked for you, there is nothing wrong with you.
Absolutely.
IBD is a jerk. And it is completely different for everybody. It is a spectrum disease. It goes from mild to moderate to severe. And so if your IBD does not respond with only nutrition therapy, there's nothing wrong with you. Just continue. Nutrition therapy can also help make your medication more effective.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's also absolutely what as I also said, I used it alongside medication for the first couple of years. And also in the Facebook group that I have with the Stichting Je Leefstijl als Medicijn, I never will recommend anybody stopping medication. And also there's a lot of people that try different ways. I did the Specific Carbohydrate Diet, but there's a lot of different types of diets. And there's not one right way to do it. You need to find what fits with you, and it's not just your disease but also your situation. If you need to work 40 hours a week and you don't have time to cook everything yourself, and you have a busy job and you have children and you need to have this all together, then it can be really challenging to make all these big changes. So you definitely need to look at your own situation. And again, also, I always say to people, try it for 6 weeks. If it doesn't make a difference, it probably will not work. So try something else, or just stick whatever you feel comfortable with. So it's definitely not like, okay, this is the way to go, and if you don't do it, then there's something wrong. So that's a really good point, Robin.
I am curious how you landed on Specific Carbohydrate Diet. Is it just that it happened to be the book you find, or had you already found some information before? Like, how did you decide on that one?
Well, it was really, I really think I just found it. I think before that, I found something on sulfites, that is a sulfite-free diet. And that's what I first tried, but that didn't work very well, which I was happy about, because then I could drink wine again.
Sadly, that was my first thought when you said that. I was like, oh no, wine.
Yes, exactly. So no, the sulfite-free diet didn't do anything for me. And then I mean, even as limited as the internet was, I just started looking and I found this, and then I just ordered the book and started reading and thought, all right, it made sense to me as well, right? So the specific carbohydrate diet is based on the fact that I don't know if you can call it a fact, but on the idea that your body has trouble breaking down complex carbohydrates, and if they're not broken down well enough, then it might feed the wrong bacteria in your gut. And I was like, well, that makes sense. Let me just try it. And again, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it did work. So yeah, that's how I find it, and also so the IBD-8 wasn't there yet, because that's also built up on the SED, right? The CDED wasn't there yet. Has been developed in the last 10 years, I think. I guess AIP was there, and the paleo diet was there, but they're all they all have sort of the same basics in that. Don't take grains and eat as unprocessed as possible. Yeah.
I think you're the first patient we've had on that has used this diet, or is using this diet. I think we had a dietitian come on, especially I think she's a pediatric dietitian in particular, that really talked about kind of this diet from the dietitian side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't Chef Abigail do SCD?
She does.
Yes, she does.
She does. Yeah. Okay. So yes,
but she didn't talk about it in this much detail. No.
And we really kind of, we talked to her about different stuff too. Talk to us about sort of initially, especially since she started this after this has already been in existence for a while. So there's already recipes available. There's already a lot of stuff available. So we're kicking it back old school with you into like internet isn't great. There's not a lot out there.
No.
Talk about starting this diet and kind of finding all of the things you need, because it is a very particular diet. Like you had to find a yogurt maker. There's only certain kinds of products that you can use. So can you talk a little bit about just kind of how do you start it? Then the second question for you is, does your family also eat this with you, or do you cook differently for them than for yourself?
So start with how I started out. Well, luckily there are some recipes in the breaking the vicious cycle, so that helps it. So the yogurt maker. Well, luckily my husband is half American, and his parents and sisters still live in the US. So that also helped. So I bought a US yogurt maker and bought some of the yogurt starters as well from the US. And then obviously a yogurt maker that you buy in the US doesn't work in Europe because of the different. So I had to buy a transformer as well. And then, but anyway, so it takes a while to figure it all out, but that's what I did. And then you need to start cooking the milk, and then the first time you're very careful, and then the second time a little bit less, and the third time it cooks over. And then you're like, all right, maybe I should try and see if I can find a timer that will help me remember that after 10 minutes the milk has boiled, and you shouldn't start reading a book to your child in the meantime or something. So that was that. But the yogurt making, I mean, now it's just, I do it all the time and it's the best yogurt ever. I can recommend it to anybody, even if you don't follow the diet. It's so good. And then it starts to become tricky, right? So you can, after the introduction diet, which is like chicken soup and stuff, which is easy stuff to make. But after that, you're trying to start and figure out, all right, how am I gonna, we're not eating bread anymore. So what am I gonna do? And then there are some recipes in the breaking the vicious cycle, but then you try that and then you're like, well, okay, this is very soggy almond bread that I don't really want to eat. So you start boiling a lot of eggs and frying eggs and lots of eggs, but then you're like, all right, I want something else as well. But then it turns out that actually, if you look at recipes that are sort of like, my supermarket in the Netherlands has really great recipes that come out every single month in a magazine. And then I just started to say, right, which recipes are sort of okay for the SID and can I adjust them to fit what I eat? And then I'll take some ingredients out and I put some ingredients in. And that's basically how I started out. And then, yeah, at some point you basically have a routine. And the best thing I did was waffles that I actually make myself. And that I mean, it's just trial and error with lots of errors. So it's pecan flour or pecan nuts actually in a blender with yogurt and eggs, and you blend that together and you put it in a waffle maker, and they're just great. And they're just, I mean, it's just like sandwich bread, and it's just so good, and I love them. And I mean, I can eat them in the morning with some fresh fruit and honey, or I can bring them to lunch with salmon and some dripped yogurt and some lettuce, and it just tastes really good. And then in the evening, it's actually the evening is not that difficult, because in the evening, I mean, the specific carbohydrate diet seems very restricted, but it actually isn't, because I mean, you can eat almost all vegetables, you can eat almost all fruits, you can eat fish, and you can eat meats. So if you just eat very pure, it's actually quite easy. So you asked if my family eats the same. No, they don't. But I'm the one cooking, so I cook a lot of vegetables, and then fish or meat or anything like that with it. And then they'll eat rice or potatoes or pasta with it, and I'll just take generally just an extra bunch of vegetables. And then, for example, instead of pasta, I use good zucchini, and instead of rice, I often really just take a really big plate of lettuce and then throw anything on it, and it just actually, I think it tastes better than what they are eating. So and obviously my kids complain that we're eating too healthy and there's never ever anything bad in the house. I think I am still pretty still allow some stuff. but yes, they are, I mean, by now they're 20 and 18, and the youngest one that I forgot in the whole story is almost 12, and he was born 3 years after I started the SED. So because I was symptom and medication free, we were able to get our very much wished third one. So I think they eat healthy, but they definitely managed to get their bunch of crap in as well.
I feel like that's probably a universal for all the mothers I know, is that the kids are going to complain about what they're eating, regardless of whether it's not enough junk, it's too much junk, or it's something. So yes. I think that's kind of a universal. Kids are going to be dissatisfied in general, but I don't have them. So this is just observational. So I'm going to write that out. It's true. Robin is saying it's true. Okay. Well, that makes sense then. Will you share your waffle recipe? Because since that's one of your favorites, and it sounds really good. Great. Thank you. Yeah, I'll make sure that
it's also on the, I will share the link to the site of Nutritional Therapy for IBD, because it's on there as well.
Oh, fantastic. So, okay. Yeah. Well, that will definitely be in the show notes. I was going to put that in there, and that will cue me up for my next question perfectly. But I also didn't know if you had it on your particular blog as well. So if you have it, wherever you have it, we will definitely link to it.
I'll share it both on the on Nutritional Therapy for IB and on my own website. But on my own website, it's in Dutch, so I don't know how many how many listeners will be able to.
Folks, if you speak Dutch, that's the perfect place to go. I don't know how many of our listeners actually speak Dutch, because unfortunately our stats, the program that we have that breaks down the stats, doesn't break it down by country specifically. I don't think. I'd have to look at it. No, I think it's just sort of Europe. You're just lumped all together. So you said pecan flour. Do you have to make your own pecan flour? I don't know that I've seen
No,
pecan flour.
I just throw eggs in the blender and then I throw pecans with it and then
Okay.
it's fine. So
Okay.
so I use the blender a lot for stuff like that. So I think you can buy pecan flour. I think Welby's has it, and I think but it's very easy to just make it in the blender yourself. So
Okay. So you do
I'm
the eggs
definitely
with.
making these.
I know they sound
yeah.
amazing. I love
They sound
pecans
amazing.
too. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and I didn't think about the putting the eggs in with it right away because I was thinking like, do I have to like mince the pecans down to flour and then make everything together? But I hadn't even thought about putting
No,
it
no,
together. That
just
makes a whole lot
I'm
more
a
sense.
very sort of like easy cook. Don't make it too complicated. Just throw it in.
Great.
And then it comes out. And then I will say it for a lot of people, it sounds daunting to make it all yourself. But I will also say that it gets easier with time, right? So the first time you're like, oh my God, this is taking me so much time. But you'll learn that cooking in batches will definitely help. So I don't make one waffle at a time. I make about 20 and then I put stuff in the freezer. Chicken soup, tomato soup, I always make in bulk so that there's something there. And also for the evenings, because as I said, my family doesn't eat like I do, and they do sometimes want to have some takeout, even though I don't like it. But I mean, every family every now and then has a moment where you say, all right, I'm tired, we're late, it's just too late to cook. And then they can say, all right, we'll order sushi or we order pizza or we order whatever they feel like. And I'm like, well, that's all great, but I'm not going to eat that. So then it's really good to just have a stack in the freezer, and I'll eat my soup or I'll eat my waffles or something like that. So that definitely helps. Yeah, also with like going out, it has been sometimes a really great experience. Especially in the beginning, I would send an email to the restaurant and say, all right, I have this condition and I can't eat this, that, and the other thing, and I hope you can help. And then, so some more simpler restaurants would say, all right, fine, we'll have some grilled salmon and a salad for you. And I'm like, all right, that's great. That's what I'll eat. And I'll bring my own dressing. I'm just happy to be there and to be out and have the company of the people I'm with. And then sometimes we would, my husband and I would go to a more exclusive restaurants. And I've had times it was the best one was in The Hague. And then we were early. We were the first ones there. And then the chef came out of the kitchen. He said, all right, listen, I saw your email. This is what I want to do. I have this really nice curry soup. Can you have coconut milk? All right, great. Can you have this? Can you have that? And then he made this really wonderful little starter. And he's like, I'm going to give this to the whole restaurant the whole evening. This is so good. And I'm so happy that you gave me the challenge to make this. And then, so he just made personalized dishes for me the whole evening, and it was just amazing. And it was much better food than we otherwise would have gotten. So it was just, it was wonderful. And and there was this other restaurant in Amsterdam that basically did the same. And generally, obviously, desserts are a no-go because they say, all right, there's a lot that we can do, but desserts is just sugar. And if I can't use sugar, then it's going to be tough. But there was this one restaurant in Amsterdam that they said, all right, I can make this. Oh, what did I call it? It was, I don't even know anymore. But it was like this warm fruits. And then they also, sablione, I think it's called. It's
sablione,
like sablione. So and you can make that with eggs and wine and honey. And so it was amazing. It was so good. Yeah, it can be, even going out can be a good experience. So, and I'm just generally just very open to anybody. So if we go out and eat with friends, I say, all right, what are you making? I can make a part of the dish, or a lot of times I also say, just come over to us, so I'll cook. So, that's how I deal with it anyway. But
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you, you said that when you started this and started to see results, you changed doctors because your first doctor really didn't want to listen to your experience. When you changed doctors, did the new doctor support this? Not just say, okay, yes, great, you've got results. Did the new doctor support it? And did they like monitor you slowly getting off of your meds? Or was that something that you totally was like, I want to do this, so I'm going to take these steps. And then they just had to follow along with what you wanted to do. And then you had the colonoscopy as proof.
Yeah. So the first one was an older doctor, and he just didn't want to know anything about it. And I said, well, I just don't feel comfortable going there anymore. And then the other one was a younger woman, and she said, well, if you want to do this, it's okay with me. But yeah, I just don't really. Yeah, it's okay. Basically, is what she said. And then I had Scopie. So, and as I said, so she was kind of surprised and sort of supportive. Unfortunately, she then moved hospitals, and then I got another doctor again, and I told him the story, and he was like, "All right, good for you." And then he took my story. I still see him sort of putting this. I had written it all out, and I see him with his folder, and it goes like back at the end of the folder. I'm like, he's not going to read it. And at that point, I was like, all right, you know what? Leave it. And I will not recommend this to anybody. But at that point, I said, all right, I have found what works for me. And unless I need them, I'll go back. So I think I had not been to any doctor for 7 or 8 years or something. And it was going really well. And then at some point, I went to my general physician. And I said, well, can I have I'm just curious, can I have a colprotectin test? And he said, well, we don't just do colprotectin tests because you want it. That costs money. That's the insurance company needs to pay for that. I'm like, okay, I followed this diet and I haven't used any IBD medication for the last 8 years. Do you know how much money I've saved the insurance company? Do you think they will be able to maybe pay for the 17 euros that it costs to have a colprotectin test? And he's like, all right, for this time, I'll do it. So, and then I came back at like, whatever, 17 or something like, all right, great. I know it's still good. And I had a test come back today because I called the hospital again. I said, well, it has been 3 years. Maybe it's good to get it tested again. And it was 38. And my, what was it? C reactive protein was 0.6 or something. So I was like, all right, well, I'm still doing well. So now I'm back in the hospital. I do ask for regular tests, but I still don't want to listen. I'm very curious. I'm having the appointment in 2 weeks, and I'm very curious which doctor is going to be there because I have no idea who my doctor is anymore.
I'm surprised your general practice doctor hasn't said, yeah, maybe you should get a colonoscopy just because of even colon cancer screening, for in general.
Yeah, well, so I had the flare up in 2019, and that's when I had a Scopie. So in 2019 I had one. So, okay. But yes, I will discuss that again in 2 weeks when I see whatever doctor it is that I'm seeing, to see if they have sort of like a regular scheduled every 5-year Scopie, just because of the colon cancer. Yes.
Well, for your sake, I hope it's somebody who's more open-minded, because that's so dismissive of that doctor to just be like, sure, that works for you. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. So it's a very small town that I live in. So that first doctor that didn't want to hear anything about it, I actually saw him in the supermarket a couple of years later, and I walked up to him. I said, I was your patient, and I don't know if you remember, but I followed this diet, and I've now been several years medication and symptom free. And I thought you should know. And if you want to know more about it, I'm happy to talk. And he said, well, that's great for you. Thank you. And then he walked off.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was so sad. But that's many years ago. And I do see that there are more doctors, not all of them, but there are more doctors that are at least interested in knowing more about it. And that's what we're all trying to do and hoping for. And that's why I'm with Nutritional Therapy for IBD, especially because they're talking to the doctors, and Kim Bell is amazing in networking with all the doctors and getting them on board, and also with the medical advisory board to make sure that everything is looked at, and all the information we put forward is looked over by all the medical advisory board. So so just to make sure that I can tell my story, but I'm just this one patient that has her own personal experience. But it is important to show everyone that there is evidence and that it can help. And just take this into consideration at least. That's actually the only thing I ask. Take it into consideration and give it a chance at least, and give the patients a chance to do that.
When I first saw the information about nutritional therapy for IBD and didn't know exactly what it was, hadn't visited the website yet, I was skeptical as a patient living with it for over 20 years. I mean, I know diet is important, but also like, I don't know how many times I've been told that if I just tried this thing, I'd be cured. And so whenever people come to me with that mindset, I just like, defense mechanism goes up, shut down, because it's like, it's been 20 something years. Don't you think I would have tried that if all it was a diet intervention to work for me? So, but then when I got in, I told Kim this when I got in and started digging around the website, I was like, oh, there's so many resources, not just for patients, but for clinicians. And there's actual links to the research that you can go and find and read. And I think that Alicia and I say this often, IBD patients are some of the most well-informed healthcare consumers because of the nature of our disease. And you'll find us on PubMed on any given day looking up the research. But the work that Kim and Tony and you are doing through nutritional therapy for IBD is so needed because it makes a difference, even in your quality of life, even if you're doing it with your meds or
and even if it's just helping you with a little bit of your symptoms, right? Making you a little bit less tired or giving you a little bit less of a stomach ache. I mean, that the goal is not being medication free or being completely cured of your disease. It's great if you can, but that's not the main purpose. It's the quality of life. As I said, I mean, I was running from bathroom to bathroom. That's not fun. So it is that quality of life that you're trying to improve, and anything can be looked at for every single patient. See what fits. So that is really what we are trying to. That's really the message that we're trying to get across. That it can help anybody in any kind of way, basically.
I'm curious about the response from the doctors at Echo, because I know we saw Kim and Abigail and Tony at Crohn's and Colitis Congress in January. And the doctors there were all super appreciative. There was a lot of really, really positive response from them. I'm curious what the response was like for the doctors you saw in Sweden when you went there.
Yeah, no, it was really great, and it was really wonderful to see actually how the whole booth and everybody that comes up and as you say, sometimes they come up and they're a little skeptical, like, well, what is it? What do you do? What are you selling? And I'm like, well, we're a nonprofit. We're really only here to get information across, and then they're all so appreciative that we have this resource that can help. And there's a lot of dietitians that were there, a couple of patients that were there, and then really great GI doctors as well that are there and that are really striving to get this. And Echo really had quite a bit of nutrition in their presentations as well. That was really great to see. And it was also I haven't been to any of the other conferences, so this was my first. But Kim also said, I mean, it is really great to see that there's more attention now for this. And also so not just sort of the diets that I'm doing, but also like how enteral nutrition can also help in preparing for people that need to be operated, that if you do that beforehand, that can really help the outcome, so that there's different ways to implement and use nutrition in different situations, also for the most complicated patients or with the most complicated part of the disease, that it can help to say, all right, well, you're malnourished. If you go into surgery right now, it will actually be really difficult. But if you do enteral nutrition beforehand, it will really help the outcome and may make sure that you don't have multiple surgeries. So that was really good to see that there was a lot of attention for that as well. And then there's the Dutch, or I think he's actually Belgian, but he works in the Netherlands. He works a lot on the CDED. So with Nestle, so yeah, he does a great job with the pediatric patients in the Netherlands. So it was really good hearing his story as well, how that's evolving. Yeah, it was really really inspiring and also motivational to be there and to hear all the doctors and dietitians that are excited to get this moving.
I see a shift in that even within the last couple of years, Robin. I mean, hasn't it been? It's just, I think it's just that more and more patients are really saying, no, diet does matter. You guys have to pay attention to this. And so I see this being very patient driven as well as provider driven. I think a lot of the dietitians have also been fighting to say like, hey, this really does make a difference. And so what I find inspiring is the fact that it seems like it's patients that are really driving this and making this important.
Yeah.
And that's so encouraging to see.
Yeah, so it's the patients that are asking for it and trying it out, and that's how it has been for the last 20 years. But now you sort of see that it's slowly coming around, and especially in pediatrics, where well, obviously there's Dr. David Susskind, who has been doing this in Seattle with the SCD, but then also here with the CDED, that is really that's almost starting to become sort of like the first line treatment, because it's easier than putting a kid on exclusive enteral nutrition for 6 weeks, right? I mean, that is really tough. So if you can combine it this way with the CDED diet and get really good results. And also, I mean, also Lihi Gadni, who is working on the Mediterranean diet, which is a much more liberal diet, but just really helps a lot of people making the right choices, right? And seeing how that can affect a lot of people as well, and as you said, also increase the quality of life for a lot of people. And they're all putting out spending their research and putting it all out there. That's just really wonderful to see.
With your vast and years experience of doing SCD and the comment that you made, where it's just really, once you've been doing it for a while, it's eating fresh ingredients, right? Not processed foods for the most part, to break it down to its simplest terms. Do you find people going to the website or reaching out to you through either your website or Nutritional Therapy for IBD that maybe financially can't afford those foods, or maybe live in an area where they don't have access to those foods? In your work, do you know of resources in those situations for people who really want to do these kinds of diets but don't have access?
Oh, that's a really good, but also really tough question.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? It's really tough.
I don't have myself experience of anybody asking me this question, but I would always say, first of all, even though everybody says, all right, buy ecological foods, they're always more expensive, right? So start with non-processed. Just start with that. And then if you do not eat processed foods, that will also help you not buy a lot of things that you otherwise would buy. So if you don't buy cookies and you don't buy chips and you don't go to a fast food restaurants, but you make more stuff at home, that will actually save some money. And then, yes, the almond flour that I'm using is insanely expensive. So, but on the other hand, you can also say, all right, well, maybe I'll eat oats, even though maybe that is not part of the diet, but it's better than eating bread. So, and oats are cheap, right? So there's a lot of things that you can find that may not be so expensive, but that you can try. So, but I do agree, there are a couple of things that are challenging here, and where you really need to look at people's resources. And the one is obviously financially. The other one is time. Do you actually have the time to do it? But the other one is also educational. I mean, you really need to know what you're doing and what you're looking for, and you need to know how to cook. And that is also why it's so important that this is being started from the physician's part, because then you can actually see if there can be help from a dietitian, if there can be maybe even some help. Because if the insurance companies pay for medication, why can't we get some financial support for diet that can do similar things as medication? So somehow there needs to be a way to find how we can do this. And I still believe that insurance companies would be the best ones to support this all, because it really will help people with their quality of life and their disease progression. But that's still a really big challenge, to see how we can help everybody and not just the people that have the resources to do so.
Start small, everybody. Start where you are.
Yeah.
Evaluate
Yes.
your time. I really enjoyed how you said it at the beginning, where you're just like, it's not going to work for everybody. It does take time. Evaluate your time. If you work 40 hours, maybe SCD is not the right diet because preparing the foods is time intensive. So go check out Nutritional Therapy for IBD's website. They have lots of information about all the different kinds of diets that are recommended.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's time for me to ask you the last question. Victorien, thank you so much for being on the show. What's the one thing that you would want the IBD community to know?
All right. Taking into account everything that we just said, and that you need to start from where you are and what fits your situation. I would say that dietary changes may be challenging and you might think that they're hard, but nothing is as restrictive as the four walls of your bathroom. And that's what you need to find. What is your motivation to help you through this? So, yeah. And get all the doctors to help you with that.
Yes, ask your doctor about it, even if they say it has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Walk in there with, well, have you seen the latest research?
Yes, exactly. So
give them all
the link to Nutritional Therapy for IBD and have them check it out. So, yeah.
That's right. When I saw your questionnaire and I saw that quote, nothing is restrictive as the four walls of your bathroom, it just hit me in the gut because, I mean, how much time have we spent in the bathroom? Yeah. I don't know. When I think about how much time I've spent in the bathroom over the past 24 years, I'm just like, nothing is restrictive. Although I will tell you that I'm thankful for smartphones only for that, because I used to play like Tetris in the bathroom, like a little handheld video game for kids. Yes. Because I spent so much time there. So,
Victorien, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really, really enjoyed talking to you and getting to know you.
Thank you. It was really wonderful.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah. And thank you, everybody else, also for joining us. And cheers, everybody.
Cheers, everybody.
Hi, this is Victorien. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, subscribe, and share it with your friends.